Welcome back to the Sales Leader Show. Joining us today is a marketing titan, keynote speaker, and entrepreneur. He is the founder of Titan Marketer and Youth in Business. He's the first international guest that we've had on the show. Joining us today from Dudley Park, Western Australia, is Ben Jones. How are you doing today, Ben?
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it, Robert. Hopefully we can deliver some great value to your listeners today. If you're listening, I really appreciate your time and your attention, and I look forward to helping you in any way that we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what I've noticed, and I don't know if it's just because we are a little bit cocky over here in the US, but I've noticed when I listen to other podcasts, people from especially maybe like England or Australia, other English speaking countries, they seem to be very polite and very gracious. And I kind of wish that I was a little bit more like that, but that was a very gracious hello from you. I appreciate that.
That's okay.
Uh, um, I wanted to ask the first thing, which is one of my favorite questions to ask most guests. But what's a commonly held belief about, you could say, careers in general? I know typically we're more sales focused, but you have a maybe a different perspective. What's a commonly held belief about careers and how people manage them that you maybe passionately disagree with?
Yeah, like I think basically with careers, I think a lot of people get stuck doing something they don't like, and I was actually got stuck in this myself, and basically we get taught to just get into a rat race and get stuck in that, and I think you can live quite an unfulfilled life doing something really well that you probably don't like very much. And for example, when I was looking at leaving home, my dad had a rule that was like, you're going to college or university, or you're getting some sort of trade, or you're not leaving. And and while that's probably some really sound advice for me, I was quite entrepreneurial, and I really like selling. Actually, I should have gone into sales because um, I would have really enjoyed that. And basically, entrepreneurship and business is all about sales anyway. But basically, I ended up being an electrician for like 9 or 10 years doing something I hated, and I had to figure out, well, how do I get out of this? And for me, the way out of that was actually business. And I think life's too short to be doing something you don't like. Just and I'm probably you know I disagree with it. Stay safe. It'll be okay. Like you've only got one life. Like don't waste it doing something you don't like. Even if you make less money and you're more fulfilled, I would rather do that any day of the week. And what's surprising to me is having started multiple businesses now, and I guess getting to some level of success, however you want to define that. Um, yeah, I think that's probably one of my biggest regrets is I stayed too long, right? I made sure that I was making enough money to leave, and I did it the comfortable way where I should have, looking back on it, just burned the ships behind me and gone out and done it earlier. So I guess in terms of careers, if you're not liking what you do, stop, find something you do and do that, right? So
Yeah. But I mean, I think that like I so I think I'm gonna ask a question for my personal life, but I think this could apply to a lot of people because I've started several businesses, as I mentioned to you before, and the reason I started them was because at that time in my life, it sounded sexy and I wanted to make a lot of money. And I didn't really think too much about, you know, how is this going to work? I mean, I came up with a plan that sounded good, but really I couldn't see a downside. I wouldn't look at it, logically. I could only see it going well and then I would just fail every time. So, like that gives me a little bit of the chills when you say, yeah, don't necessarily wait till you're financially ready, um but at the same time, is that a motivation problem that I had? Maybe I was going after the wrong things, or what do you think about that?
well, I think the thing with this particular podcast, I can be a bit more aggressive with it because
Yeah.
we're talking to people who can sell, right? So if you can sell, like if you have the ability to sell something, and really anyone can sell, right? It's just
Yeah.
getting out there and selling stuff.
Yep.
Actually, that is the skill you need, right? Like that's the number one skill. So there's probably two problems. One, can you sell? Yes. Two, have I got people to sell to? Is it something people want? And
Yeah.
if you've got those two things figured out, like it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Like for example, at the moment, my own kids, I have four kids. They're selling. We're doing some markets in the lead up to Christmas, and they're actually just selling like light up toys at a market down at our local like main street or what do you guys call it? Main road. I don't know what it's called there, but
We have Main Street. Yeah, we have
Main
like a
Street. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, so they're like down there selling that, and like they made, what did they do last night? Like over 2 grand just selling these light up toy things, right? Like wands and swords and whatever else, and the margins on it are quite good. And like it doesn't have to be a sexy business, I guess, is where I'm going with that. It just has to be that the numbers work, right? Like if you're and make sure you got some good business principles. Like if you're selling something that's $10, it can't cost you any more than like $2 or $3 to like get, source, and sell, right? And I think if you hang around with those like 1 to 3 or 300% margins, and you've got something to sell, like whether it's a service or a business, you'll be fine. I mean, even if you just grab a lawnmower, go knock on doors. You're going to make enough money mowing lawns for that day to put food on the table as a worst case situation, right? So um, you know, if you're a salesman, you can go door to door and sell whatever you want. Like,
That's so true.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's no reason why you can't. And if you enjoy sales or whatever, like understand that it's not going to be romantic when you get started. But like if you've got a good product or service and you know how to sell that has good margins, then yeah, just get out and make it happen, right? So
I wanna ask you, so, like, what was the moment or maybe it's a series of moments, but I guess a two-part question, like, what made you realize, "Hey, like, I don't wanna" was it electrician you said? "I don't wanna
yeah,
be an
yeah.
electrician anymore," and then what actually was it immediate that you said, "Yeah, we're gonna start a business," or what gave you the courage to make that change?
Yeah, so actually it was probably a two-step prong. So what happened originally is I thought I could invest my way out of it. So I, you know, didn't really understand any financial education, and that was a massive problem for me because I just felt stuck in doing a job that was good, and I was quite good at it, and I was getting paid really well. But I was like, look, I've got to like I think when I left, I was on like 150K a year, and I worked 6 days a fortnight or something stupid, right? So I was on like really good money. And I guess the problem with that is you get like the golden handcuffs a bit, like it's like, how do I, to leave this is a big deal to earn less money. And, I had little kids, like, wife and a couple of kids and a mortgage and all the stuff. And you're like, well, this is going to end badly. If this goes bad, it's going to end horribly. Right. And we put a lot of our like, what do you call it? Like a lot of your, reputation or the way that you present to the world, however you want to look at that, is wrapped up in your career and that you've got a good job and all of that, right? So it's a lot to get over. But for me, it was I remember reading like a book and going to a conference about investing in business and stuff, and just being like, hey, look, there is another way. I don't have to do this. And that was the big aha moment. Was there is another way. And I wish someone had sat me down in my 20s and told me that, it's okay to take risks and to do this. Like no one ever lies on their deathbed going, oh man, I'm so glad I stayed in my safe job that I hated for the last 20 years, right? Like no one says that ever. So, and look, I've made plenty of business mistakes, but the aha moment probably came at that conference. And then I think then it just slowly eats at you, right? So over the years, when there's another option and you see other people doing it, and you're like, surely I'm as smart as that. And you're like working away doing the thing that that pays the bills that you really hate. You're like, just I guess just feeling unfulfilled. Like it took years, man. Like I'm talking like probably about 4 or 5 years to actually make. Like I tried all the side hustle thing, like do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, but I didn't really commit. And in the end, what happened was we ended up buying a bunch of online businesses that were doing really well. And, that's where I made the transition to leave originally. And since then, we've gone on to start like multiple other businesses and all sorts of things. But the thing you leave with that you start with, within 5 or 10 years, I guarantee you'll be doing something different and something bigger and better than what you first started with your first idea, right? Like, so I guess it's a journey. Just get out there and make it happen. I guess if you love your job, like stay there. But if you're feeling unfulfilled and you don't like it and you want to run your own thing and have the freedom, then yeah, it won't be easy, but it will be rewarding. So
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I got to know a little bit more about youth in business. Like, what made you want to start that? When did that come about? I don't know how new it is, and what's your message there?
yeah, 100%. So youth in business has been around for about 6 or 7 years now. We actually started it with my son. Basically, like my wife and I got to a certain point. We'd sold basically those online business I was talking about, and we were like, "Well, what do we do now?" And I had some education businesses and things, and I was like, I'd love to teach. My son wanted pocket money, right? And I was like, man, I don't want to give him something for nothing. I feel like that's just such a horrible thing to teach people. They basically teach you to be dependent on parents and later on society or whatever. I was like, how do we teach our kids to like have their own businesses and things, and what could we do there and be self-sufficient? Like that was really the driver for it. So basically, he had some like Nana's Christmas money. We started a little herb garden. He would grow his herbs. I thought it was a great thing for him to learn. And then he'd package them up and go door to door. He's like the shyest kid, right? So the idea of looking adults in the eye and talking to them was like the hardest thing for him. I was like, that's exactly what we need to do. So so we did that. He'd go door to door in our neighborhood and sell his stuff, right? And that went really well. He ended up having like a herb subscription thing where people would knock on our door and pick them up, and was making some decent money out of it. And then we had other parents say, "Well, how do we do that?" And about the same time, in another business that I had, my paths crossed with some now friends of mine who said, "Hey, do you guys want to do events and sell this from stage?" I was like, "No, not at all." Anyway, they sort of showed us and helped us how to do that. And before we knew it, we were speaking in most capital cities in Australia to rooms of about 5 to 800 people. We did a launch just prior to COVID in the UK. Same thing in London and Manchester and whatever else. And that's gone really well. So, I mean, the cool thing about that is the results that we get. So, with the Youth in Business program, we've had most kids in their first month will do over $1,000 in sales with no business idea, right? Which is really cool. I think the record is like 5K. And we have this thing where we just get them to start with $20. So you start with $20, you turn that into as much money as you can, and you just sell like crazy, right? And yeah, most of them will do over $1,000, which is really fun. So we've got heaps and heaps of them. You can check them out on the website, all the different case studies. We've got a bunch of kids who've done well over $10,000 in a month that our 10K club. We've got kids who've done 7 figures in a year. Some of them have bought
Whoa.
houses before they're 18. We've even had one of our kids write a book like How I Earned More Money Than My Principal, and I wrote the forward to it, right? So the kids have been in every sort of media and TV station here in Australia. It's just been absolutely crazy. It's probably the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. So if kids can do it, if kids can get out there literally on $20 and make $1,000 in their first month, that's why I think I can be a bit forward and say, look, anyone can do this, right? Like just get out there and sell. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I've got 5 sons of my own, and, I've had those same thoughts, like, man, like, the same thing, like, I can't just give you money, like, I grew up too entitled, you know what I mean? Like, I had to learn a little bit of that in my adulthood being like, "Oh, I gotta actually take care of business," you know? And I want them to be more prepared, so, I love that. That's such a cool idea. I mean, is there any, online version or anything in the States that that I'd be able to check out?
yeah, man. Well, if you check out our website, it's just Youth in Business. We actually have some free training, and we go through a bunch of examples and how to get started. And we give away like 101 cool ideas and stuff like that. So um, yeah, like because the biggest thing is like, well, where do I start? What's the idea, right? So you can check all that out there. Just go to youthinbusiness.com. It's all sitting there ready to go.
Sweet.
But yeah, we want to obviously be able to help as many kids as we can, right? So the thing I really love, like there's two parts to it that really I think like drive my wife and I to put this together. Like one is it's basically the first one is like teaching kids how to sew. I think that's great, but more importantly than that is the $20 challenge. Is that's what we call it when they get started, right? They start with $20, they sell their way into as many sales as they can make in that first month, and there's a framework to it. But basically, if you're down to your last $20, and let's say you learn how to turn that into $200 or even $100, right? You'll never be poor or hungry ever in your life, right? Like if we could teach people how to be resourceful with their last little bit of money, and you don't even need the money really, if you look at how the challenge works, you can just go out there and sell something before you have it. We call that sell it before you build it. They would literally cure world hunger, right? Like it's a pretty passionate thing. I think today's generations of kids, um, there is a lot of entitledness going on. And my kids go to a private school, so I definitely see it. Um, and like I think if kids are given the chance that to, be self-sufficient and do their own things, like, you'd be surprised how many of them will take it up. So that's really passionate to us. Like I feel like that could literally be world changing if we could just get people to learn that one skill, right? So
That's amazing to think about when you try to kind of expand it out to globally. What could that do for people? It's so true. I mean, there's always opportunity to sell something, right? There's always an opportunity to sell something and create value. That's really cool. I'm definitely going to check that out with my kids. Um, I am curious though. Like, I don't know. Maybe with your experience in business, that I think this question could apply to youth as well as just anybody, But the question is, what should every young person, or we could just say person, do if they want to be in business that they're not doing now?
yeah, learn how to sell straight up. so
I love it.
uh,
I love it.
so like yeah, I have a particular child that struggles at school, and I'm like, look, man, most of the crap they teach you at school, I don't know if that's the right word, probably, most of the stuff I should
Yeah.
say they teach you at
No,
school
that's perfect.
is it's just rubbish, right? If you can learn one skill and it's the skill to sell, you'll never go hungry, and you'll always be able to sort yourself out. Like good salespeople, people who can sell, are hard to find, right? So, and it's such a really good skill. Like sales and marketing, I think like obviously the two go hand in hand, but learning both of those is a great skill. I think every young person should learn. And I think the other thing is not only the ability to sell, but if you understand the numbers of business with along with the ability to sell, like you're pretty much going to have a skill set. Like even if you end up in a career, like let's say you end up as a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer or a physio or even something that doesn't have a degree attached to it, and you're working for another person, you're going to understand how that business works, right? Like you're going to understand like how can I be like a really valuable employee here and add to the bottom line instead of just being like I just expect a paycheck, right? So I guess like for young people, like I'm really passionate that the young people should learn that, and even older people, like if like I said before, if you're doing something you don't like and you want to give it a shot, like do something on a Saturday, go sell something. What can you sell? Like what? And I guess what value can you add to the marketplace? That's the big question, right? So and yeah, there's so many options, right? Like it's in today's world of the internet and whatever else, like yeah, there's just so many different things you can do.
Do you ever run into people or kids, whoever you may run into, that maybe they wish they would do something, but they kind of like feel lazy or they just don't have any motivation to do anything productive? Have you ever run into that, or are most of the people you deal with pretty motivated?
No, 100%. Most kids aren't motivated, right?
Mm,
so
right, that's what I would assume.
yeah, so and people like um, you know the reason a lot of us don't have a great life is because we're too comfortable in a good life, right? Like a good life is the enemy of a great life, and being comfortable is the problem, right? So if I held a gun to your head and said, "Hey, you have to make an extra $5,000 this month selling something. You don't even know what it is yet. I could guarantee you could figure that out, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is we're just not adequately motivated enough or driven enough to make it happen. And I think there's really two things there. So one is obviously you have your pull motivators and your push motivators, right? So your push motivators will be like, if we don't make an extra $5,000 this month or whatever it is, they're coming to take the house or,
Right.
whatever it is. You will figure it out, I promise, right? That
Yeah.
would be a
Yeah.
massive push motivator to make that happen. A pull motivator is usually something that you're looking for, like, if we hit X amount of sales, we can buy this. And I find with kids, that's the best thing because they all want something and it's usually not very expensive. So, for example, my son wanted a Nintendo Switch or whatever. It was a couple $100. So we're like, all right, cool. Go sell something, figure it out. So he did. Went and sold it, bought himself a Switch. What was really interesting though, and my other son wanted some stupid Lego thing. It was like $200-300, like an electric train that he could drive off his tablet or whatever. I was like, okay, go sell something. And they both sold different things, but the one who bought the Lego, he was quite young. So he literally packaged up like caramel popcorn and made brownies and went down to his local football thing and just like sold everyone there all this stuff that he made. And he made a couple of $100 in an afternoon and went and bought his Lego, right? So it doesn't have to be like this big, massive idea, right? Like it can just be
We
something as
overcomplicate it. We totally overcomplicate it.
it just can be something as simple. Like that's not hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, anyway, like what was interesting. I was talking to my other son about this, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, do you remember what you got for Christmas when you were a kid? Because Christmas is coming up." I was like, "Man, I can't even remember." He's like, "Oh, well, that's pretty silly." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." I said, "Can you remember what you got for the last 3 Christmases?" And he couldn't do it. Like he could remember like one thing, and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I said, "Can you remember the things that you've bought for yourself over the past year or two? Your Nintendo Switch, this, like all these different things." He's like, "Oh yeah, I bought this and that, whatever." And the reason why is because he had to work for that and he had to earn it and go out and sell for it and put some effort into it, right? Like those things had meaning for him. They're the things he's going to remember when he was 20 that, oh yeah, I was able to enable myself to get these things. He's not going to remember all the stuff that we bought him or the holidays that we took him. Well, I probably remember the holidays, but do you know what I mean? Like the things that you get given don't have the same intrinsic value, if that makes sense. So
Mm, that's really interesting. I love it. Something you said a second ago too kind of triggered a memory from childhood where when I would ask my parents for something that I wanted, I would often hear, "We can't afford it." Right? We can't afford it. We don't have the money for that. We can't do it. Right? And what you did instead was, sure, you can have it. You can have whatever you want, basically. But yeah, just go earn the money. And what a cool lesson for a kid to learn that, hey, if I want something, I 100% can go do it and get it, right? Instead of feeling like, oh, we just don't have the money. It's like, well, the money's there. You just need to go get it, right? You need to go get it. That's a really cool. I don't know why I thought of that just now, but I thought that was a really cool uh, contrast to what my experience was growing up.
yeah, no, 100%. And I had the same thing growing up as well. And I think most of us hear that, right? And we were quite intentional with it with our kids of never saying we can't afford it ever, right? So like even when you like just kills me to even say that sentence, right? So um, like it's a whole mindset thing. And I think it was Robert Kiyosaki. He was like, wealthy people never say we can't afford it. We just figure out how do we afford it, right? So, and I think that was a big lesson. And I was like, well, I'd never want my kids to think that something is unreachable. Like literally at the moment, my how old is he? 11-year-old's like, I want a motorbike, right? I'm like, okay, cool. And like that's a bigger thing.
Yeah,
Most parents would be like, hey man, we're not buying you a motorbike, right?
right.
But we said to him, okay, cool, go sell some stuff, make it happen. And literally within the space of probably 2 months, well, in the next couple of weeks, he's gonna have enough money to buy himself a motorbike. Right? So
That's so
whether
crazy.
whether I want him to have a couple of $1,000 motorbike is a whole nother thing. But
Right.
same with my son. Like my other son was like, "Oh, I want a sick one laptop that costs like a couple of $1,000s or whatever." I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, the one I have to buy for school meets this spec. I'll pay up to like whatever it was, $700." I said, "If you want something cool, then you have to add the rest." And yeah, away he went and ended up with, $2,500 laptop he's busting around school with, right?
Oh
But
man.
he paid for the most part of it. And guess what? He looks after it really well. I don't have to tell him not to, you know, to look after his stuff because they value it more because they've put the money in it. Could have I bought him the expensive laptop? Yes, I could have. Would have that taught him anything at all about life and how to get things that he wants? No, not at all. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's kind of
So
the same to
100%.
me. Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say it's kind of the same to me of like your story of when you were an electrician and you decided, hey, I'm gonna actually buy these businesses or whatever, right? Um, you had to believe that you could do it first. You couldn't, right? You had to say like, no, I can do this. I can change careers. I can do this. And like you said, it took some time to get there, probably, but uh, that message. I mean, we need to teach ourselves that, right? We need to say, no, if I want it, I can go do it. I just have to do the work. It's not going to be given, but I have to go figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely perfect. I really like a quote. I think it's from Henry Ford. That basically said, "If you think you can or you can't, you're right." And so for me, I was like, that's so true. Like you've got to be mindful. Like, I think I can go do this thing is not the same as we're definitely going to go do this thing, right? So having some certainty around what it is that you're going to do, and um, putting yourself in a way where it would either, like it's okay to fail. And I think that's another thing, like culturally, that we're not, like in the Western culture, we're not okay with because we literally go to school and they teach us that failing is bad for like, probably a third of our life, right? So, and even like risk, like entrepreneuring to being an entrepreneur today is cool versus what it was like 10, 15 years ago, right? So,
Hmm.
um, going out and failing at something can be terrible, but that's how we learn everything, right? So, like it's something that we need to be okay with failing. Like I've made heaps of failures in business and all sorts of different things to sort of
Mm.
get to where I am today. But as long as you learn from those failures, then that's okay. And you need to stop beating ourselves up about it. So if you've tried a few times to start a business, for example, and it didn't quite pan out, that's okay. At least you tried. Like what can you learn from that? And we have a saying we teach with that I teach my kids is like, I'd rather you aim for the stars and hit the ceiling, bounce off and go out the window, right? Like it's okay to fail. Like it's okay to do those things. And I think that's something that a lot of people are just scared of failure. Like that's the one
Mm.
thing that they're afraid of, but it's the one thing they need to teach them what they need to do next, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, fail forward, I guess.
That reminds me of a quote that's geez, I'm gonna botch it, but it's like anything that's worth doing well is worth doing horribly at first, which basically means you're gonna fail at it, right? You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fail, but if you don't do that, you're never gonna get the experience you need to get good at it. You have to suck at it first, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
for sure.
Sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, no, that's no.
Uh,
I just agree with that 100%. And it's okay to
okay.
suck for a little bit, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. All right. Well, what I want to end on is this. So, speaking of failure, is there a specific one that you've experienced that you think maybe a lot of us are heading to? Meaning that we don't have the vision or we don't have the belief or whatever it may be. We're going towards a failure that we can prevent, but maybe you've experienced that.
yeah, I can share. Well, obviously, I've had heaps of failures in life, right? Like I'm far from perfect, but I think there's probably two parts to that. One is like failure is a good thing. You've got to go through it and learn from it, and as long as you learn from it, and so we sort of live. My wife and I sort of live by this saying as well, is that life lessons are repeat until you learn the lesson. So if you think about it in life, there's
Mm.
probably things that keep coming up, right? Like you keep failing at this particular thing, right? And the
Mhm.
reason that that keeps happening is because you haven't learned the lesson yet. And life is just one big chain of failures that are going to happen until you learn the lesson, right? So learning the lesson is really cool. Now, if it's a big enough failure and you really stuffed it, um, what my wife and I'll do, and look, let's be real, there's plenty of them out there. Anything from like, if you got kids, man, you fail at that all the time.
All the
Like
time.
if you've got a business, you've made failures in that thing like once a week, I guarantee, right? So like
Yeah.
as long as we learn from them, and that's the big one. So if it's a big enough failure, my wife and I have this thing, we call it the never ever again dinner. So if something really big happens, like we lose a business partner, or I don't know, COVID comes along and knocks $500,000 out of our business or something, or those things that will happen. Like, what do we do with that? So then we'll go out and we'll have like a never ever again dinner, and we'll be like, right, how do we make sure this never happens to us again? And we'll sit down over dinner and we'll write it all out. Um, and that's really cool because we learned a lesson, and those things will never ever happen to us again, right? So that's one. How we deal with failure. The other one is, what's something that I've experienced that I think others may be headed for, to answer your question. Uh, that's sort of the second part of my answer. And for that, look, one, I can just talk about my own personal experiences. One of my big problems is I always like to plan when I first got started in business, was plan the better plan instead of making the better sale. And I think a lot of people, when they're thinking, look, I'm going to leave my job, or I'm going to start this side hustle, or I'm going to do this business, you're taught to come up with, like 10-page business plan, 50-point branding guideline, all this stupid rubbish to go and start a business. And you end up with all these documents and things, and you basically plan the better plan and nothing happens. And when you go implement the plan, within about 2 weeks, that plan's completely useless anyway, because you've moved in another direction. And I mean, if you go to college or university and you learn about, let's say you go get a business degree of some description, they're literally going to sit you down and teach you business by people who've never been taught business before, or never run a business, I should say. And they're going to say things like, look, if you're profitable in the first year, that's fantastic. And it's just so rubbish, right? So what you really should be doing is, look, if you're profitable, you should be profitable straight away. And this is where you come back to selling it before you build it. And that's the one thing that we teach the kids when they first get started. But it's the one thing I wish I had to learn when I was a teenager. If someone had just told me, look, sales cures all in business. Go out and sell, make some sales, and then figure out the rest, right? So if
Mm,
you've sold a product or a service or whatever, even if you don't have the product or a service, but you've made the sale, you can figure out how to deliver on that, right? But you need
mhm.
to have the sale first. And that's the big problem. So that would be the number one mistake. Like, for example, I went to start like an online business. Like, I'd already bought a couple, but I thought, I'm going to create my own. I literally spent like 2 months creating the plan on how to do that. It was so dumb. And then we did it, and it turned out nothing like the plan. And I was like, that was the biggest waste of time ever. And the reason for that is because I planned it first. So sell it before you build it. Like, if I can leave you with anything, like, I've literally had multiple seven figures with that. Like, sell it first, then figure it out. It's like the coolest thing ever. The other thing I would say is, with the sell it before you build it, my business partner came up with sort of a saying for it, as we were taking him through a new business. He was like, look, it's basically like you're flying the plane before you've built it. So if you can think of that as an analogy, like you're making the sails and you're trying to like strap the wings on, and you're like putting the engine on as you're getting up into the air. Now, when you get to a certain point, like, let's say, I don't know, whatever point this may be, you feel like kind of you're going okay, the sales and stuff are coming in your business. So sell it before you build it, build the plane by your flight. But then when you get to a certain point, like, it might be $10,000 a month or $100,000 a month, but there's going to be a point where the plane's kind of flying, right? Whatever that is. At
Mhm.
that point, you must switch the culture or the thought process from sell it before you build it to, um, you know, do it right or do it twice. And
Mm,
that's where you start, like, furnishing the plane and making sure it's nice inside. Otherwise, you'll just repeat the same lessons, right? So
mm.
when you're first getting started, be okay with like making lots of mistakes. Understand that you are flying a plane that's not built. Just get it up, get it going, and then tidy it up once you get out there. But the biggest failure I think a lot of people are headed for is they want to create that better plan instead of making that better sale. So forget the plan. Just go out there and sell it before you build it. Have a sales target. That's about the only plan you need, and figure it out. So,
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, last thing, and then we'll get to how we can connect with you. But I wanted to ask. This is a bit of a surprise. I just thought of it, so I apologize for not
far away.
preparing you. But just in closing, what's maybe 1 to 3 things that listeners who might be hearing some of these ideas for the first time should do? Like, what is 1 to 3 things they can take action on and start doing today to get closer to where they want to be?
Yeah. 1 to 3 things. So I guess the first thing is know where you want to go, right?
Hmm.
So I always have like, if I'm ever asked to speak on mindset or anything, I really love that Alice in Wonderland moment where, she walks up to the Cheshire Cat and she's like, "Oh, where should I go?" And which road do I take? And the Cheshire Cat turns around and says, "Well, where do you want to go?" And she goes, "I don't really know." And he turns around and basically says, "Any road will take you there," right? And I think that's a big problem in society. I think a lot of people are just walking around.
I think we lost your audio somehow. Okay, awesome. So we're back from some technical difficulties. So I want to just re-ask Ben. We were talking about the failures, and you talked to us about the first part of your answer. But what was the second part of your answer as far as what failures people may be heading towards and how they can maybe prevent it?
Sure. So the second part of my answer to that was, look, basically we want to plan the better plan instead of making the better sale, right? And can you hear me okay? Is the sound coming through right? Yeah. So basically,
Yes.
you know, we want to plan it out. And I spent ages planning out a business once, and bought some business. So I thought, hang on and create something of my own. And it took me like 2 months to just write it all out. And I went and did it, and it was just total rubbish and didn't work. And so I was like, oh, that's so annoying. But I think what we needed to learn, and what I wish I learned earlier in the piece, was just go out there and sell it first and build the business as you go. So that's really the key thing that I think you can do is sell it before you build it. Get out there and do it, and make that happen. So I know
Love
we
it.
edited this a little bit out because I know we're recording, but did I talk about the plane and everything before?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, we did all that. So I think the question that we were stuck on, I think you asked at the end, I can't remember what it was.
Oh yeah,
But
I
yeah,
may I may I may have asked a follow up. That's a good point. Man, these technical difficulties, man.
I think the question
Um
is something like, because I know I was going to talk about Alice in Wonderland. And if I'm
yeah, you
talking
talked
about,
about the Cheshire cat. You did talk about that.
so I think we
And
were
you're
saying,
about to go into something.
so yeah, how do people know how to get to where they're going or something like that? Is that
Oh,
it?
you gotta know where you're going. The 1 to 3 things, right? You're
Yeah,
right.
that's
I went too far back. It was the 1 to 3 things that they can take action on.
it. Yeah. All right, cool. So one to three things. So I think we got to the Cheshire Cat, like know where you're going, right? We did that bit.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. So one is to know where you're going. The second is once you know where you're going, just go out there and make it happen. Don't plan it. That would be a really big bit. Like have a sales target, like a figure you want to hit, and it's okay if you don't hit it, right? But like be okay with having a number that you want to hit and just going out and trying to make it happen. That's really 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 important. And I guess put some motivators in play. If you quit your job, you'll be motivated to make it happen. Right? You have to make that work. If you've got make yourself accountable to something. So, like for example, at the moment, like I want to learn how to like get a bit more healthy and do running and stuff like that. So another thing you can do is change your peer group. So I started hanging out with people that do flipping triathlons and all sorts of stuff like that. So for me to sit around with them, and, they want to talk about that stuff. I don't even understand the whole space, but I've gone and bought $1,000 running watch and started doing running and whatever because I want to hang around with people who are doing the things I want to do. So I guess that's a big, massive like. The one is like put those motivators in place. Like I want to be, hit this sales target, burn some ships behind you if you need to, but also like get around a peer group of people doing what you want to do because it'll be way easier if you have a support network, right? So if you want to start a new business, go down and join the Chamber of Commerce with other business people, make some business friends. And if you're introverted like myself, you're not really keen on getting out there and meeting people. Well, it's too bad. Like if you really are committed to this whole thing, like go make some friends doing what you want to do, and you'll be really, really surprised. Even if you have to pay to get into a mastermind full of those people, like that will really help. If you've got a good peer group and you've got some good motivators in place, that will make you get there. And in terms of taking action, like I know you guys are all in sales, right? So you guys know how to sell anyway. It's like the best gift ever. Get out there and sell. Like if you're selling for a company, that's great, but maybe sell on the side. Like what can you sell for you, or what services could you sell to either bring in enough income, or sell something that you're really passionate about. Maybe you're selling something that you hate, right? And ethically, it doesn't sit with you. And I know a lot of salespeople suffer from that. You sell something truly great that you love, and you literally, if you do stuff that you enjoy, you never have to work a day in your life, right? So I guess that would be the next couple of steps. One, know where you want to go. Two, put the support network or the motivators to make it happen. And three, just get out there and sell, and grow your business, grow you, whatever it might be. But without sales, nothing's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I love it. All right, man. Well, tell us where we can connect with you, learn about what you have going on, and get involved.
Yeah, cool, man. So look, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. So if you type in Ben Jones and type marketer or youth in business, either of those are fine. You can visit both of the websites. So Youth in Business is all around helping kids start businesses. I also run, which we didn't really talk about today, I also run a consulting and also helping people grow their business to multiple 6 and 7 figures with YouTube advertising. So we do a lot of that, helping business grow YouTube at the moment, because let's face it, Facebook sucks. and if you want to really grow your business out with like paid ads on YouTube, we have really cool systems and heaps of free stuff that we give away there. So you can check that out at Tart Marketer. But yeah, look, like LinkedIn's great. If you want to connect with me personally, love to say hi and connect with you in whatever way that we can. And hopefully, like, I've been able to help you guys on this podcast interview today. Thanks, Robert, for having me, and hopefully I've been able to be worthy of your attention today. And wish you guys all the best in whatever adventure you guys go on next.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I will definitely link all of that in the show notes as well as on YouTube. And for now, we'll say bye to the audience, and we'll hang out a little bit after this.